TikTok, time to rock. How's everyone doing? Is this the first time we've live streamed, Adam?
Yeah, man, definitely. I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, everyone. So we were getting set up, and I'm having a problem. The normal thing that gives me a sound readout here is malfunctioning and not giving me a sound readout. So we're just going to do a quick sound check here at the beginning. Let us know basically if our volume is appropriate and if we're roughly even in volume. So this is about the rate I talk about. Adam, let's go back for it. Matter of fact, Adam, just tell us about yourself and what you do, and then everyone can check your audio.
All right. Well, first I got to do like my own launch line. You do TikTok time to rock. I'm gonna do tick time to kick. Yeah. we'll see how that goes.
That's
try that out.
Yeah. That's not.
That's not Adam Coleman.
That's not derivative at all.
Not at all, man. I just made it up just now. Freestyle. Straight freestyle.
It's off the top of the dome right there, man.
Dome. That's how we get down out here, man. Off the dome. So yeah, man. Like you said, I'm Adam Coleman, man, of Tru-ID Apologetics YouTube channel. Y'all definitely check me out here on YouTube. And yeah, man, I'm just a couple years ago I started a podcast. And then, guys like yourself and Vocab Malone chastised me heavily for not being on YouTube and stepped my game up, doing these videos and whatnot. So I've been trying to tighten up a little bit, and been dropping videos, man, primarily on like Black atheism, dealing with Hebrew Israelites, starting to get my Islam game on, and things of that nature, man. Definitely dealing with a lot of the worldviews and objections to Christianity that are gaining traction in the African American context, urban context, and so forth. And just touching all kind of stuff, man. So yeah, that's me right there, man. Mm-hmm. Happy to be here, bro.
Yep. And Adam is one of the guys whose channel's going to be blowing up. When did I start hearing about you? Last year? It was like three different people in three different parts of the country, all within about a month's space, said, "Hey, you should check out Adam Coleman, man. This guy's sharp." So,
yeah, well, actually, I think they were talking about a different Adam Coleman, but I just left up and it confused and got me. Yeah. So here I am.
There's some super brilliant Adam Coleman somewhere, and no one knows it because every time someone finds out about him, they think it's you. Hey, check this out. Check out what I got here.
Oh, it's a jihadi tears.
Jihadi
bro.
tears. Got to label your water bottle.
There you go.
I'm so thirsty. I bet I killed this. 2/3 of a gallon here. Anyway.
Yeah, I hadn't seen you in a while, man. So when I saw that you lost that weight, I thought the coronavirus got you, dog. I'm like, my man got out here.
It's been
caught you slipping, bro.
Adam's commenting on the fact that I lost about 20 pounds over the past month, but there's a reason for that. See, look. Adam, let me break this down to you. If you want to play, you ever seen Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator? You ever see that show?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, if you want to play Chris Hansen in a parody video called To Catch a Prophet, you can't be fat Chris Hansen, right? You can't do it. So sometimes you just got to get all shredded up and play Chris Hansen, right?
There you go, bro. I see you, dog.
All right, let's check out some comments, guys. Just so you know, this is the plan right here. So, we know some of you are living perfectly normal lives right now, right? We know some of you may be in areas that aren't really affected. We know others might be locked down. And if you're locked down long enough to where you're not really going outside, you're stuck indoors a lot, you get what's called cabin fever. Start getting a little crazy. Now, I spent years locked up, so that wouldn't bother me at all. But basically, we know a lot of people are going to be stuck indoors for a while. So we want to go live whenever we can at night. And so we formed the Flu-Tang Clan.
Flu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to cough on.
Flu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to cough on, ladies and gentlemen. So we started the Flu-Tang Clan. Look at this. Where'd he go? Nope.
Not quite.
Nope. We are Flu-Tang forever. Flu-Tang killer bees. Let's see who else we got. Aiden Peterson, you remember?
Greetings.
You remember Aiden, right?
Yeah, he's just boom. He's in the mix, and so he gets out there. We're dealing with. What's known to be like one of the tougher like camps. I mean, they definitely tend to stand their ground on what they rock with. But he's not just standing around. He's like actually engaging this stuff, man. So like he was in the mix, man. We had what's my boy from the Dutch rapper we had with us, man.
Oh yeah, what's his name?
What's that guy's name?
Yeah, I forget. He had a weird Dutch name.
Yeah, he's like freestyling on the train and stuff. I mean, we had a squad
in multiple languages too.
Right.
Yeah.
It was dope. It was dope. I see Vocab's in the chat.
Vocab's over here.
Him. How did he get a wrench, man?
Huh?
Vocab.
I don't
Vocab
know.
Malone's in the chat.
I probably left my laptop open one day when I was over at his house, and then he probably like made himself a moderator or something.
Right. You meant to block him or something like that, and just pushed the wrong button. Was that what happened?
Yeah. No. He probably went on my computer when I wasn't paying attention, made himself a moderator, and then I don't know a lot about computers to fix that.
Right.
Wait. Hey. King Kong said Chris Hansen got caught himself. Is that true? Did that happen? Did
he really?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. That'd be messed up. Like Chris Hansen got caught himself.
Oh, I had no idea.
No, I don't know if he's just joking or something like that, or if or if he's serious.
Maybe.
But anyone hear about that? If he did,
on a serious tip, man, like this virus, Jane, is no joke, man. I mean, it's I got cabin fever so bad I actually ate a salad the other day and liked it. That's how bad it's getting out here, man.
Whoa.
It's getting bad, bro.
That's bad. It would have to get really bad before I turned into a rabbit and started eating salads.
Right. I actually enjoyed it. I said, man, what's wrong with me? I must be coming down with it. We have any questions so far coming? Or I don't know.
There's a bunch, guys. And just so you know, we've got a topic. We're going to talk about God and coronavirus, and what we mean by that is, we're sitting here. I'm sitting here responding to a lot of the Muslim comments that I get about, they're trying to show that Muhammad must be a prophet because of something he said, when if you take a look at what he actually said, it would prove the opposite if it proved anything. I'm going to be making, I just made one today, but there are plenty more videos to be made about Muslim imams and sheikhs claiming that, the coronavirus is Allah's punishment for this or Allah's punishment for that. And he's punishing this group. And then it ends up affecting Muslims as well and so on. So anyway, I'm going to be making fun of, I'm just going to be making fun of comments like that. There is a more serious issue, right? That we're Christians. We believe in a God who loves us. We believe, in a God who historically has performed all kinds of miracles, and yet we are confronted with something like coronavirus, where, keep in mind, this is not nearly as bad as a lot of things that have happened through history, right? Smallpox, bad stuff.
It's pretty bad.
Bubonic plague. Really, really
right.
bad. Just wars. I mean, you're talking millions upon millions of people killed. Europe, Asia, and so lots of horrible things going on. So,
definitely.
The issue of human suffering as a result of disease is nothing new. But we have such comfortable lives compared to lots of people throughout history that these things tend to stand out much more to us and tend to make us think, far more, because we become far more hedonistic. You know what I'm saying? Become more hedonistic, so that when something interferes with that, then it's, oh my goodness, I thought God was looking out for me. When, historically, gosh, this is the God who allowed the bubonic plague. This is the God who allowed smallpox and so on. So,
right.
So we'll be talking a little bit about what's called the problem of evil, but also, since this is since we know people are trapped inside and stuff, we're also going to be pretty comments oriented. Meaning, if we end up going off track, just chatting with people, we're gonna let that happen, because we just for people who are caught who are trapped inside, right? And if you're stuck at your computer, because
exactly, yeah.
Especially, you know what I'm saying, Adam? There are people who just live alone.
Right. Yeah. And actually, this is an opportunity. It's like one of those times where it's like, okay, for years we talked about how social media is driving people apart, and affecting social interactions in a negative way. But it's actually crazy that, we're in a situation now where it's really the opposite. Mm-hmm. Whereas the fact that we have access to, platforms like these where we can get on and, hang out with people and, maybe, take their minds off of something, at least for a little while, they can stare at our ugly mugs for a little bit, and if anything, just kind of get a little comedy off of that, man. If we bless people in the process, then we've done some good, Mm-hmm. But I know we're joking around and stuff, but but at the same time, and you and I, we've talked about this, but I think this is why ministries like these are so important. Mm-hmm. We live in the 21st century, wherever we are. It's 2020, and ministries have an opportunity to affect people in ways that, where in human history could you have access to, this amount of people during an incident like this? Matter of fact, our homeboy John, mm-hmm. He just dropped a video, I guess it's been a couple weeks ago now, where he was talking about what's called the plague of Cyprian in North Africa and the Roman, in Rome as well, where you had the church able to, get out there and be a witness. And he had, John McCrae from What Do You Mean has a dope video on that. You know what I mean? But, back in the second or third century, whatever that was, I mean, they didn't have YouTube. They didn't have, what we have now. So, how could we not take advantage of what we got, and, take opportunity to bless some folks, man.
Mm-hmm. The couple comments here. Fred Sanford.
I saw one too,
Fred Sanford. By the way, this is the Fred Sanford.
Is the
did you used to watch Sanford and Son?
Of course.
I grew up.
You big dummy.
I grew up on that. Aunt Esther was probably my favorite character of all time on any TV show.
Right.
Aunt Esther, man. You know what I really like, where they can take a character that, in theory, should be strongly disliked by people, but people love the character anyway. And Aunt Esther's one of those, right? It's like super judgmental Christian woman calling everyone heathen, smacking people with her purse, always threatening everyone with hellfire, and everyone just loved her, man.
She's hilarious.
Yeah,
man. She's hilarious. Yeah, definitely.
I remember.
I see a couple questions too, man. So whenever
you can jump in with anything you want. We'll chat with people. We can get to our topic whenever we don't have questions to answer. But yeah,
cool. Yeah, so actually, I'm gonna throw out one for quick question. Like, do you do super chats first? Is that how you do it on your channel? This is my first time. I'm a first timer, man. You gotta show me the rules, man. You can
answer any question at all that you want. So we don't stick to the super chats, but if someone's super chat, basically it makes it more visible, and it's highlighted on my computer, so that will get more attention. But no, feel free to answer anything you see.
Cool. Okay, cool. I see one from John Buckley. He said, either of you two think the end is here? Yeah, interesting. I'm gonna be upfront and say, like, eschatology, in terms of, like, theology about the end times and all that. That's probably the area that I'm least sure about. I mean, I can sit in. I tell people all the time that I can sit in a chat about, like, pre-mill or something like that, and be like, man, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And then, I sit in somebody who's like, I'm millennial this, and, they'll make a case. I'm like, man, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, I have no idea. But, when I think about the words of Jesus, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but he talks about how there's going to be wars and rumors of wars and pestilence and all these different things. And he says, but the end is not yet, So I don't think that necessarily from events like these, you can really say, boom, like this right here, we must be at the end. I mean, because again, I think you captured it perfectly that pandemics, it's really a part of human history, actually. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not something that's new. I mean, there's been all kinds of plagues. We've had famines and things like that. So I don't think you can really look at any individual incident and say, boom, this must be the end, because Christ said you're going to have all this crazy stuff going on, but the end is not yet. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, I don't take it to be, that this is the end. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. I got a little shook. I don't know if people are aware of it, but actually right now in East Africa, there's like this humongous, just outbreak of locusts right now. This like eating its way across East Africa.
Well, anytime you hear about locusts, that makes you think about the Bible, right?
Like, yo, I ain't gonna lie, man. I got a little shook at that point. I was like, man, hold up, yo. Oh no. I looked at my wife. I was like, yo, man, we might be in trouble. You know what I'm saying? But I got kind of jokingly, I don't really believe that. I mean, I think, again, for any given instance, these things happen. And I mean, really, when you think about it, given how people are more mobile now than they used to be, mm-hmm. I mean, viruses can travel, at least among human beings, a lot quicker. So, I personally, I don't. You can take it from there, but I don't think it's the end.
No, you're correct. I mean, that is. I mean, like even during the times of bubonic plague, in order for that to spread from one main area to another, it had to be ships rolling in, and that's actually how they invented the sort of modern. You had people who would kind of be quarantined, be separated and stuff like that. Like historically, people would do that with lepers, or even something like chicken pox and stuff. They're like, get away from me. But as far as quarantine in the modern sense of, hey, your ship just pulled into port, you need to separate everyone on your ship for 40 days over there in that area where you're not around anyone. And you need to show us after that 40 days that none of you is showing any symptoms of bubonic plague before we're going to let you in there. That was invented as that sort of modern concept was a result of that. But notice, even back then, if you wanted to if you wanted to bring bubonic plague to a new area, a ship had to come in, and there had to be rats on the ship, and the rats crawl into a new area, and they've got the fleas that are carrying the bubonic plague, and so on. And
right.
But now with planes just crisscrossing all the time, and who knows what in the world's going to come out. Because keep in mind, coronavirus has, depending on where you are, sometimes there are low death rates, sometimes there are pretty disturbingly high death rates, especially among the elderly and so on. But I mean, there's nothing that would, the death rate could have been like 40 or 50%, right? And it could have, a disease could come out that with a death rate of 40 or 50% that has like for the first 2 weeks, you don't even know you have it. And then all of a sudden you start dying. So for that 2 weeks, you've been spreading it to everyone else around you. That stuff could just come out of nowhere. And so, yeah, we are in a different age of history when something like that could, it's a
different world, man. Yeah.
Be pretty creepy. It's time. Makes you want to go buy a cabin out in the woods. I mean, on some mountain, and have that thing loaded up with like 2-3 years supply of food up there, and
your food, ammo, everything you need, man. Just get ready for that zombie apocalypse or whatever.
You see, you start thinking of these guys who have like bunkers in their basement loaded with like MREs and like an arsenal down there. You start thinking, hey, maybe these dudes got a point, man.
He's on to something. Yeah, exactly. You know what's funny? Actually, tell me what you think about this. So now, mind you, I am a recovering conspiracy theorist. You know what I'm saying? I used to be like, in my younger days, I was definitely heavily on the government's manufacturing stuff.
And the white man, you say it. Go ahead and say it. The white man is behind everything.
All right, well, hey, I'm keeping it real. I just thought for sure the white man was going to come up with some disease and just eradicate us all by accident or whatever. It was going to happen eventually. You know what I mean? So my thing is, I think like now, of course, I'm not along those same lines now, but when I think about like the different movies that we watch, or like I'm a video game guy, so games like The Last of Us and stuff like that, or these games where it's like this dystopian future where it's like all these zombies and stuff. Like, I feel like in instances like these, like in my mind, when I heard about the pandemic, like I felt like part of me kind of went there. It's like, oh snap, I'm gonna just like bug out and go in a cabin, get me a shotgun and just ward off these scores of half humans or something. I mean, I think we can take it to the extreme, but I think media really impacts how we interpret events in the world, though. Does that make sense? Or
on the issue of the question was, is this the end? Just my view on it. Basically, for 2,000 years, people have been looking at various things, saying, "Look, this is, hey, it's here. This is it." I think so. I think things will be a lot worse when the end comes. Personally, but yeah, I'm kind of like you in that I don't have a firm position on eschatological issues and stuff like that. If I read the book of Revelation, you say, David, what's that mean? I go, I don't know. Well, it means Jesus wins. That's my takeaway. So yeah, I don't get too much. I don't get too much more specific than that. Here's a question from Hi to Cole. Hey David, what would you suggest to start studying Islam? Actually, I've been planning to make a video on that. If you're talking about books, been planning on making a video like top 5 books Christians should know to start learning about Islam. But Hi to Cole, I would say first off, if you haven't read it, read Nabil's book, Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. You could get a lot of the same information in there, but it's because it's told as a biography. It really helps you get inside the mind of someone who's raised as a Muslim, start understanding their perspective, and then getting into the apologetics as well. So I would start with that, and after that I would go to Norm Geisler's book with Abdul Salib called Answering Islam. That was the first book I read on Islam. So start with those two, and you'd actually be pretty good.
Dope.
All right. Well,
my answer to that would be whatever David said. That would be he's the Islam expert, But yeah, actually, I do want to say this though. I mean, as somebody, I haven't really spent a whole lot of time on Islam till like fairly recently. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys like yourself, Sam and other guys that got me kind of really like pushing on it. And it was crazy to me is, just as there's so much that we don't know about Islam, and there's so much that Muslims professing Muslims don't know about Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, when people watch your videos, sometimes, like, to be honest with you, like if they're not aware of your ministry, they could, you might be making a claim about something that's in a hadith or whatever, and people might be, that can't possibly be true. That's not in there. But when you go to the source, it's like, oh snap, like that's crazy, but it's in there. You know what I mean?
That's how I was. I was in a prison dorm when a Christian told me that Muhammad had a 9-year-old child bride. So he said he had sex with a 9-year-old girl, and I was like, come on, man, there's no way. There's no way this dude who's influenced all these dudes around the planet, all these, over 1 billion followers or whatever. There's no way this guy had sex with a 9-year-old girl. Never happened. Come on. And then,
right.
And then, of course, years later, I found out. I'm like, what? I'm reading it right out of their sources, and it's everywhere. It's all over the place in their sources. Yeah, right. And so it's like, my goodness. People. It's basically, you look at Muslims and you say they have such a high view of Muhammad that he must have been this really great guy. And then if you hear he did this really, really bad thing, you think there's no way he could have done that. Otherwise they wouldn't think of him as the greatest man who ever lived. And then,
what's funny is that the first time I heard that, I was hearing it from a guy, and like my first reaction was like, yo, man, we gotta respect other people's religions. Like, you can't be making up stuff like that. You can't say disrespectful stuff like that. Because I was like, I didn't realize it was true. I was thinking like, that's something that's so heinous, you shouldn't, put that on somebody if it's like just slanderous like that. Yeah. But then come to find out, like, oh no, he really did have this 9-year-old, child he was essentially molesting. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. Dude. That's crazy.
And that ain't all he did, unfortunately. So
right.
Yeah, pretty creepy. Yeah. Pitar Milic in the super chat said that imam praising coronavirus. I don't know if you saw my video a little while ago, but that imam praising coronavirus forgot that Muhammad had a much more revealing problem than coronavirus, a severed aorta. Remember, I don't know if you know that background, but in the Quran, Allah says, Surah 69, that verses 44 to 46, I believe, that if Muhammad were to invent a false revelation, Allah would sever his aorta. And then years later, Muhammad's dying and says he feels his aorta being severed. And so
you told me about that. Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, quick question. Like, I don't think I've asked you before. Like, how do Muslims generally respond to that when you kind of put that before them? Is like a lot of pushback? Like, how do they? Like, what do they do with it?
The main response is that in the Hadith and in the Quran, it uses two different words for aorta, and so it's not talking about the same thing. When you can ask any Arabic speaker, that the words mean the same thing. It's like the aorta is also called the life artery, right? So they're two different names, and so if I say, and I don't see how that gets around it, right? If I were to say, because the way I put this is, if someone walks out and says, if I'm a false prophet, then God will strike me down, and then you get blasted by lightning, you know what I mean? Then you might start thinking, hey, maybe this guy's a false prophet. That was your answer, right? Well, Muhammad goes around and he starts saying, if I'm a false prophet, God would strike me down for inventing a false revelation. He would sever my aorta. Well, imagine someone comes along and says, God would sever my aorta, and then suppose he's dying a few years later and he says, I'm dying. I feel my life artery being severed. What's your life artery? It's my aorta. Right? I mean,
bleeding out. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the basic response. And then the other kind of response is that this is just some sort of phrase that we don't know a lot about. Maybe it's just a kind of phrase for dying in a lot of pain or something like this, with a lot of chest pain or something like that. And the thing is, if that's what it is, feeling my aorta being severed is just a phrase for meaning I'm dying in a lot of chest pain. Well, guess what? Then that happened too, right? So if that's if that's just a phrase and that's what Allah means in the Quran, then guess what? That's exactly what happened to Muhammad too. So not a lot of great responses to things like that. And if that were the only thing we knew about Muhammad, then maybe that wouldn't be too much. But when you combine that with the other 75 arguments we have against his prophethood, my goodness, there's no one in history who's more of an obvious false prophet than him, right? There's no one you can point to. Right. There's of all the billions of people who've existed in the world today, down through history, there's no one you can point to who has a larger collection of proofs of his false prophethood than Muhammad. No one even comes close. It's not just this. It's look at these. We have all these different ways of.
It's like it's almost like he's he's like the opposite of Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, like
Yeah.
in the Old Testament, we got all these prophecies of like centuries of prophecies, and he's like, you know, he's fulfilling like the colt, you know what I mean? Coming in, you know, he's riding into Jerusalem on the colt. He's doing everything to let you know that he's a Messiah. Well, like Muhammad's like the exact opposite. You know what I'm saying? He's doing everything he possibly can to let you know that he's not the man. You know what I'm saying? That's wild.
All right, this question is kind of connected to the topic that we wanted to. Oh, so, side note, Mr. Phil Fox said, thanks for your ministry, David, and thanks for the ad, Adam, on Facebook. Blessings and safety to all. So I guess you added him on Facebook, but
oh yeah, Phil Fox. I just added him. Yeah, cool. What's up, man? What's going on?
yeah, and everyone. Also, Adam, a link to Adam's YouTube channel is in the description box if you want to click on that, which you should, because he's going to be he's tackling a lot of issues that a lot of other apologists aren't tackling. Here's a question that's actually connected to what we were just talking about, but also connected to God and coronavirus. This is from Riaz Qureshi. He said, "Why do you think God has allowed Islam to prosper so much, even though it is evil?" So this is a question. You have what's called like, you know, natural evil, right? Like diseases, earthquakes, typhoons, hurricanes, tornadoes, all kinds of diseases, things like that. These are called natural evil, meaning that, you know, it's not that the typhoon or the tornado is intending to kill people. It's not that coronavirus is intending to kill people. So there's not a moral element. So it's just called natural evil. It's evil in the sense that it has this impact on people, but it's a different kind of evil. It's not moral evil. Whereas you also have, you know, moral evil, which is human beings intending to do certain things. And I think, you know, false ideologies that are dangerous and bad would fall into the category of moral evil. So what would your thoughts be? Why do you think God allows sort of false ideologies, dangerous ideologies that lead to a lot of suffering, something like Islam, which leads to lots of persecution against Christians, against Hindus, against Jews, against all kinds of people? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to answer in a way that, you know, since we got Vocab Malone in the chat, I'm going to answer in a way that's like smoke to his eyes and like, you know, nails on a chalkboard. You know, I'm of the perspective that I really believe that free will of some sort, you know what I'm saying, is essential to having an authentic, loving relationship of any kind. You know, and I think that God, you know, we think about, you know, God is a Trinity. You know, God, the Bible obviously tells us God is love. But he's also, he's, three persons, in one substance, three persons, one God, right? So, God is inherently social as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, relationship is just, it's a part of who he is, if you will. It's like a natural dynamic. So I think that, when you kind of put those two together, God, his intent for mankind kind of flows from that. You know what I'm saying? He really wants real relationship, real loving relationship with mankind. But I think as an aspect of that, I believe that he allows us to choose, however we want to, frame that. I think that God allows us to either align with him and, walk with him in a way that glorifies him, in the way that we're created to function, or we can rebel. We can sin and do things that are contrary to his will. And I don't think that he, just restricts us, from doing so. I think that we can sin all we want. You know what I mean? If that's what you want to do, and then bust hell wide open, hey, go for it. And I just think as a function of that, of people choosing to reject God, choosing to reject, the cross and so forth, they create their own. They create idols. I'm saying, man, we were made to worship someone, to be more specific. And so when we take God off the throne, when we put God out of the picture, then we just end up replacing him with something else. And in the case of Islam, they replace him with, Muhammad and, and the Quran. They treat the Quran as like this infallible source. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's idolatry. It's man doing something that he was, it's a counterfeit of what he's created to do. And I think that we're all can actually take heed and actually to kind of bring it around to us, to try to make it personal. I think that we should take note of idols in our own lives. You know what I'm saying? Just because you know the Lord and are walking with him and all that kind of stuff, we're prone to put something in its place. That's the whole story of the Old Testament with Israel, more specifically. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. And so it's something that we can all take heed of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can't resist. But someone's Tim Nick is asked if you're Lennox Lewis.
I've gotten that several times. Actually,
yeah.
I wish I could do the accent.
Until you open your mouth, you could pass. But as soon as you open your mouth, then it's nope, that guy's not British.
Definitely not.
It's interesting if we're talking about ideologies and why does God allow something like Islam to, because within a couple of decades it's if nothing changes just based on birth rates, Islam is set to surpass Christianity as the dominant religion in the world. And if you guys think things are rough now, my goodness, wait till Islam becomes the biggest religion in the world. So the question is why would God allow that kind of thing? And I'm kind of like you, what do you mean? That's our responsibility, right? I believe if every Christian in the world would learn some basic facts about Islam and Muhammad and the Quran, and go to Muslims, especially now that we have, every opportunity in the world, I don't think Islam could stand up to scrutiny. Instead, we have a handful of Christians dealing with Islam, and then a bunch of Christians sort of stabbing them in the back, saying, "What are you doing? Why don't you leave those Muslims alone? What are you, a bunch of haters? What are you, a bunch of bigots?" and stuff like that. And so, so I look at the problem as kind of our fault, as far as the situation we're in right now, right? And I tell people this: we have opportunities that Christians couldn't have dreamed of for 14 centuries. If whether you want to preach the gospel to Muslims, or you want to refute Islam, or you're like me and you want to do both, right? You want to refute Islam and preach the gospel to Muslims. No one could have dreamed of a situation where you can pull a phone out of your pocket and talk to a Muslim in Saudi Arabia on Facebook. They couldn't have dreamed of a scenario like that, right? If you just go back a few decades, if you wanted to talk to Muslims, you had to go to some really, really dangerous areas, and if you were at all successful, you're going to get your head chopped off. And so you had to be putting your life on the line. Now it's just so easy. So on the one hand,
too easy, man.
On the one hand, we have all the technology in the world to reach any Muslim with an internet connection all over the world, and at the exact same time that happens, the exact same time that we have access to Muslims around the world, every country, we also get open access to their sources, right? Because keep in mind, for 14 centuries, you had Arabic speaking Christians and so on, but the vast majority of the world, if they had no access to Muslim sources, right? And even up until very, very recently, this gave Muslim preachers who are willing to deceive their listeners a massive advantage. So that when the Muslim speakers came to, let's say, Harlem and said, "Hey, you want to stick it to Whitey? You want to stick it to Whitey? Here's the religion that promotes the equality of everyone. There's never been, we never had slavery in here. We never did anything like that in Islam. This is the religion that liberates the slaves, frees everyone, and so this is the religion. You want to listen to that Christianity stuff that enslaves everyone, right? And if you were in Harlem, you did not have source. You did not have the sources. You didn't have Sahih al-Bukhari. You didn't have Sahih Muslim. You did not have the ability to point out what the hadiths say about Muhammad and his numerous black slaves and him having sex with his female slaves. You didn't have the access, right? So this allowed Islam to spread in an atmosphere where people just have no access to the truth. And all of a sudden, all of this gets handed to us. If I'm thinking, if God is involved in something, right? In something like, doing something about Islam, I say, here's a generation of Christians. We're worried about jihad. We're worried about the impact Islam has on women, all these kinds of things. We recognize that it's about to become much more powerful than it has ever been before. And simultaneously, we've been handed every resource we need to completely refute all the lies that this religion has been based on. And simultaneously, we can give a presentation of the gospel to Muslims in every country on the planet I look at that and say, wow, if anything is a blessing from God to be able to deal with Islam, that is. But notice it still comes down to us. And one thing I wanted to add here is having discussions with lots of atheists and so on, I find that I simultaneously have a higher view of human beings and a lower view of human beings, right? When they start talking about like Matt Dillon, when he starts talking about, hey, we just, human beings in general, we seek the good of humanity, and we seek, human well-being. And I'm just thinking, what planet do you live on, man? I live on a planet where people will eat each other alive as soon as something starts going wrong. And then he's saying, we could build a foundation for morality based on nothing but selfishness, right? If I'm selfish and I want what's best for me, well, I need a good world to live in, and so we'll encourage everyone to be moral. And I'm saying, well, what if you could steal a bunch of money and you knew you could get away with it? And he's saying, no, you wouldn't want to do that because it would affect the global economy. And so, have you ever actually met a really selfish person? Because no one's thinking, man, I could steal this $10 million, but I don't want to affect the global economy. He was even saying you wouldn't steal a Coke because he'd worried about the price of Coke. I think he said something like that. I have to go back and check out the clip. But so anyway, so in that sense,
well, I mean, I'm gonna just say that. I mean, if that's how he thinks, he's a better human being than I am. I'm telling you that, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean,
it just left to myself. But hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm going for mine. That is what it is.
Yeah. So my idea is, if that's how you view other human beings and you think that's what the world is like, I think you're delusional and borderline insane. If that's the takeaway message you get, right? So on the one hand, I'm looking around at people and I'm thinking, Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, all these guys. Hitler did not go kill all those people himself. He didn't kill them. Everyone else killed them. Everyone else killed those people for him. Same with Stalin. Same with Mao. Same with Pol Pot. They had tons of people on their side in doing these things, and so on the one hand, morally, I have a much lower view than the view of lots of atheists who are commenting. But as far as like what we're here for and our role, I have a much higher view, right? If you look, I mean, right here, let's look at the beginning of Genesis here. So Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. So we're made in the image of God, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over the cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Human beings are to rule over all the earth. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them, so male and female, created in the image of God. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So we are here to rule, right? We bear responsibility for ruling this earth, and we are, in that sense, God's representatives here on earth. We're the image of God, and we have, that comes with a lot of obligations. So when we screw up and we don't do what we're supposed to do, it never occurs to me to say, man, look at this messy place I'm in right now. I really messed this house up. I got piles of stuff everywhere. I haven't cleaned this place. Why, God? Why? Why is this place so messy here? I can't believe it. I can't believe that you would allow this. This is me, right? I'm in charge of this. I'm in charge of this.
This is it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm gonna come back on that because obviously, Tru-ID, that's my whole thing. It stands for the real you, Imago Dei. You know what I mean? And actually, shameless plug. I want to encourage people to go to my channel because I actually have a whole teaching on that concept of the Imago Dei where I break down some of the ideas that are behind it. Just kind of share one aspect. One of the things that I've come across as I've been studying it is that term image. Like you mentioned, it's kind of like it means like representative figure, and scholars have been able to kind of understand how that term was used in the days where the biblical authors were scribbling it down. And one of the ideas behind that is back in the day, just say like right now President Trump could be in any part of America like in a matter of minutes or an hour or whatever. You can just fly around or whatever. But back then you couldn't do that. What I'm saying? You couldn't get to a leader couldn't get to all parts of his his wherever he reigns, I'm saying, just in a matter of minutes. And so what they would actually do is they would put like these different posts, like kind of like totem pole looking things, I'm saying, at different parts of their the area that they reigned over, so that when you look at that post, who that area belongs to. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one of the ideas is kind of behind, that word image there. And so in a sense, in the earth realm, that's what we are, to God. God reigns over all. You know what I'm saying? And we're like a representative figure here in the earth, showing, his authority and so forth. And we're supposed to conduct ourselves in that way. There's a whole bunch of different things like that, that's really behind just those two words, his image and likeness. You know what I'm saying? But to your point, though, I mean, and actually, I learned this from reading Clay Jones. If people don't have his book, they really need to get it. I can maybe pull up here in a second so I can get the title. But Clay Jones has a
wait.
Bam! There it is. Why does God allow evil? Right there. If you don't have it, you need to get it. And so one thing that Clay Jones points out is we really are self-deceived. Like we don't realize how bad we really are. You know what I'm saying? And to your point, like we're talking about Hitler and you're talking about Mao and all these folks. One thing that he struck me, he said it in a talk, actually, before I even read the book. I heard him say this in a talk. Like when you study like genocides and stuff like that, it's not like a bunch of, people who are out of their minds doing these evil things, lopping people's arms off and all kinds of stuff. He's like, the way he put it was, it's your next door neighbor.
Yep.
It's the guy that you saw at the market yesterday buying fruit. That's the guy who, when everything goes down, is going to be sending you to the gas chamber.
He actually in that section, I remember because it stood out to me. He quoted a German scholar, Hannah Arendt, who said she was talking about Eichmann, who the guy who oversaw the whole
final solution,
the concentration camp system.
Yeah,
and she said what was so disturbing about him and the people who were like him was how terrifyingly normal they were. These are guys who got up in the morning, had breakfast with their kids, played ball with their kid, went out, massacred thousands of Jews, came home, had dinner, sang songs, played a little, tossed the ball around and stuff like that. And but go ahead.
No, I mean that's the thing is, and I think sometimes we have like a false confidence in how good we think we are, or and we put that. And now me, man. I keep it 100 at all times. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna give a real example, right? So, I'm on this mission trip in Kenya. This is back in like 2004. You know what I mean? We're out there on this mission trip. We're in this big field, and we got a whole bunch of this big church service going on in this field, right? And so I'm like basically playing the role of an usher, and I'm looking at the stage, and over my shoulder I hear like this rumbling noise, like a truck is approaching. I look over, and it's just like this one military vehicle, and just immediately I had like this sinking feeling. I'm like, man, this is not gonna be good. And so these dudes roll up, you know what I mean? Jump out. They got like the AK-47s in hand, and they're like, look, either y'all come up with some money, or it's gonna be a problem. You know what I'm saying? Now, it was kind of like the movies where like everything slows down and like, all I could see was the gun. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I'm not in America right now. Now, I brought that up to say is like from somebody like myself, you're brought up, particularly in my context, like, man, Africa's the motherland, and it's this brotherhood among all black people. And at the time, them dudes like, look, they don't care where you from, brother. Either you got this money or it's gonna be a problem. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't none of this other stuff. I'm saying that you're kind of raised on. So my whole point is, we sometimes put confidence in things that really don't reflect the human condition. You know what I'm saying? The reality is, as the scripture talks about, the heart of man is desperately wicked. Desperately wicked. You know what I'm saying? I think it says right after that, who can know it? I mean, man, we're like left to ourselves, we're in bad shape, bro. We're in bad shape. And so I think that, again, going back to Clay Jones, when we think about, why do people do bad things, like, or even the coronavirus, like some people, I think, and it just goes back to, I like the distinction you made. It's an important one between natural evil and moral evil. And I think, many atheists, at least the ones I've come across, believe that, okay, well, maybe you can deal with the moral evil part, free will, But, what about natural evil? The free will defense doesn't touch natural evil. But I think it's because they don't understand that element of theology that you touched on a second ago. If mankind has been entrusted with stewardship over this physical earth, I'm saying, then it makes a whole lot of sense that if we get out of line, then everything under us gets out of line. I'm saying it makes a whole lot of sense why there could be, earthquakes and all manner of, craziness going on in the physical world, in the natural world, given that by us getting in sin, we've just disrupted the whole natural order from the top on down. I'm saying, well, not the top because God's the top, but from mankind on down, whether it be, including animals and so on and so forth. So I think, again, that free will aspect, or at least I'll just put it this way for maybe my reform folks. I won't make it as spicy as that. Just saying, just man's sin, right?
He's talking to you. He's talking to you, vocab.
Right. They're talking to vocab. He's gonna get me tomorrow. He's gonna. Actually, I was about to say something that I forgot we were live. I almost said something else, but anyway. But seriously, man, it's that natural evil I think can be accounted for given the disobedience of mankind and the fact that we've stepped out of our stewardship role and have allowed sin and brokenness to run roughshod throughout the world. I mean, I think that really accounts for it. Hence, the coronavirus.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, really, guys, we could just take some other questions because that's we could just take random questions after this because that's kind of my view too. If you want to understand God and coronavirus, why would God allow coronavirus? Why does God allow these horrible things, bubonic plague and so on? And as Adam pointed out, the atheists will say, yeah, okay, well, maybe you could explain Hitler in terms of God giving us free will. And if we misuse it, then, that's on us. But, that doesn't explain the plague or smallpox or Spanish flu and things like that, or coronavirus. Doesn't account for things like that. But really, I mean, I think of it in terms of once you really think about how depraved we are. And Clay Jones also had a section there on the Stanley Milgram experiment, where Milgram was interested in how all these normal people could be persuaded to go and throw Jewish children in a gas chamber, right? And keep in mind that's the sort of thing that stands out to us most. But the Nazis also had like portable gas chambers where they would show up to sort of orphanages for the mentally kids with mental problems, and they would put the kids in the portable gas chamber and gas them all, and so they were just exterminate. And guess what? It was we tend to think, oh, the guy that was carrying out that orders, that guy must have been like killing cats when he was a kid. No, they were. I'm sure there were a few of those, but the studies show the vast majority of people who were carrying out these orders, whether it's under Stalin, whether it's in communist China, whether it was under Pol Pot. These guys were normal family men who were carrying out these orders. And so Stanley Milgram decided to carry out an experiment basically where he's one person is ordered to shock another person in a way that's supposedly going to teach him. And he's told over and over again to give a bigger shock to the person until you get to the point where the shock is supposedly possibly lethal. In other words, this might kill the person. This might kill the person and stop this person's heart. And he found in that initial experiment, 65%, and there was no difference between men and women. 65% of Americans were willing to push a button that was giving a possibly lethal shock to another person for no reason at all, right? It wasn't, the world is going to be saved if you push this button. And so 65%. And then this experiment was, similar experiments were performed around the world. And the one in Germany, even after the Holocaust, you'd think the German people would be, I really need to think about what I'm going to do here. 85% of Germans, again, no difference between men and women, 85% of Germans were willing to, just from being told, hey, go ahead and push that button. This might kill this person. Okay, bam. 85%. And so I have to conclude that we are really morally, we are in far more rebellion than we give ourselves credit for. But here's the thing. A lot of what's called the argument from evil or the problem of evil is based on the idea that when something's going on, something bad in terms of natural evil is happening in the world, well, that's a situation where God should step in and rescue us from this bad thing that's about to happen, this disease. And I'm thinking, if you really come to terms, wait a minute, we are people who are supposed to be honoring God, supposed to be honoring other people, viewing each other as created in the image of God, responsibly ruling over creation, and between 65 and 85% of us would torture and possibly kill any other one of the others on command.
Right.
Given the opportunity,
Right.
we kill millions upon millions of people. And yet God is supposed to sort of swoop in like Superman every time there's something bad going on and say, "Hey guys, I know you don't want me to be any part of your life. I know you don't want I know you don't want to fulfill your purpose. I know you sit around whining and complaining all day long. But you know I'm here for you. I'm here to rush in and help in this situation." Right. I don't see where God has any obligation to do something like that. And so I think I'm like Adam here, that I think there's a connection between the moral evil of humanity and what's going on with the natural evil, and God not just rushing in and fixing these kinds of things.
Well, I mean, to that point, I mean, like, you know, you and I, we both have kids, you know what I'm saying? And so if my daughter or one of my sons come to me and says, "Hey, my room is messed up, you know, what are we going to do about it?" And I'm like, clean it up, bro. Clean it up. You know, if you messed it up, you know, they're at the age now, you know, where they need to, you know, clean up after themselves and things like that. And so actually now to make it even more specific, you know, whereas when my kid was, I've got a newborn. I've got a kid he's you know, just coming up on 5 months old. You know what I'm saying? If he, you know, messes his diaper, I'm not going to say to him, "Hey, you know, clean, you know, change your own diaper." You know, but if I have, you know, my 5-year-old, you know, drop something on the floor, I'm like, "You need to clean up." There's different levels of maturity, you know, and so it came to a point where me and my wife had to have a discussion. Hey, you know what? We think they're old enough to start, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? They need to develop, you know, this character trait of, you know, being disciplined, you know, taking care of the things that belong to them. You see what I'm saying? Now, my whole point is, I think, you know, in some philosophers, they approach the problem of evil from this standpoint of like, there is this soul building element. You know, sometimes we'll refer to it that way, right? Whereas, you know, God is not going to swoop in every time there's like this bad situation, because whether we like it or not, there are some times where those bad situations can yield through, you know, experiencing it, developing character and so forth. You actually, you know, end up developing in ways that you otherwise would not have. You know, so they talk about soul building, you know, as an element of you know, why God might allow, you know, certain levels of evil, you know. And so actually I see that in my own life right now. You know, I mean, I can't go out and do what I want to do. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know, I can read the word more. I can spend some more time in prayer. I can put out more YouTube videos. I can, you know, be more disciplined. You know, people are having all these discussions about, you know, loving one another and holding each other in higher esteem and appreciating those around you in ways that maybe they wouldn't have if we continue to be distracted by, you know, video games, movies, and whatever else. And so I think that's a piece there too, you know. But I got a comment here, if you're cool with it, man. It's something I want to respond to.
Is it on different lines or same lines?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is.
Same lines? Okay, yeah, go for it.
Oh no, I'm sorry, it's on different lines.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to add one thing. I wanted to say it. This whole anytime this comes up of you know, atheists, you know, we don't need God to tell us what to do. And so every time for years now, this is, I don't remember how many years ago this was. I want to say 5 or 6, but I was living in the Bronx and was taking the subway home, and I got back, I don't know, it was probably close to midnight. And there was, when I would get off the subway, there's a little drugstore that stayed open till midnight. And I got off the train in the Bronx, almost midnight, and this woman was walking into the drugstore with her daughter. Her daughter must have been like 4 years old. And the mom walked in, and the daughter just stood there outside. And so the mom walked back out and said, "Get in here." And the girl goes, "I don't need you." And the mom said, "Get in this store right now." And the girl screamed, "I don't need you." And the mom would say, "I said, get in this store right now." And the girl goes, "I don't need you." And I'm like, you're a 4-year-old girl.
Wow.
In the Bronx, in the middle of the night. You need your mom, right?
You need your mom.
You need your mom. So I kind of feel like we're like that screaming little girl. We don't need you. Get out of here, God. Just stay away until something's going horribly wrong. Okay, God, you know, come back, fix this, and then get out of our faces.
Right.
And
yeah, it's all God bless America when things are going bad, and the next thing you know, we're back to, you know, separation of church and state and all that other stuff. Choose Jesus. Said, Jesus rules everything around me.
I think he's talking about that. I think he's talking about the
Yeah,
Wu-Tang.
the Flu-Tang, right?
Matter of
There
fact,
you go.
right when I said Flu-Tang Clan a couple days ago, I said Flu-Tang Clan. You said something like coronavirus ruins everything around me.
Corona ruins everything around me. Cream, sub the channel.
Yeah.
Don't let it make you ill, y'all.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. The floor is yours, sir.
All right. Now, this is a serious point right here, David.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I think we have a problem that you and I need to hash out. You know what I'm saying? Are we saying names of people, or are we leaving names out as far as the comments being made?
If they're in the comments, you can give their name. That's public. So.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so we got an allegation for you, brother. You know what I'm saying? This is from Takia Watch TV. It says, let black people think for ourselves. We can agree and disagree on cultural expression of our faith at Acts 17. What's up with that, man? Let black people think for themselves, bro. What are you doing here, man?
Now, what's he mean that I should never give my view to you? Because as far as I can tell, that would be like viewing you as less than everyone else, right? It's not like, oh, if I have a disagreement with this white guy, then I say, hey, here's where I think you're wrong, and here's what I think the correct view is. Now, what do you think? But if I'm with you, then I just need to be like, oh, I can't talk to you along those lines. You're too different. You're too different from me, sir. You just go believe whatever you want. You can't be part of these conversations that we're having right now. No, you need to just go think for yourself and get,
Yeah, you do. You think I'll do mine? Yeah, actually, I'm being funny, but I want to kind of take it back to something you said earlier. You were talking about Islam. And I'm picking up on what he said. He says, we can agree and disagree on cultural expression of our faith. And I'm not exactly sure what it means, but, I was thinking about something you said about Islam, how back in the day in Harlem, because they didn't have the sources, they wouldn't be able to refute, so-and-so disciple of Elijah Muhammad, saying whatever on the street corner, because they didn't have the sources. But, obviously now we do. And I just think it's very interesting that, so often, and I deal with this on my channel all the time, you have people who will put culture, and the influence of culture either on par or even above scripture, and God's truth in the world. And that's how you end up with different belief systems like the Hebrew Israelites, the Moors, the Nation of Islam, where they're so concerned about culture, that they lose track of truth. Now, I'm of the perspective that as a function of God making us in his image and endowing us with these social properties, right, that we're able to relate to each other in ways that we create culture. I think culture is actually a beautiful thing. But when it gets out of whack, when we allow it to become the foundation of who we are, rather than just a feature of who we are, then we end up getting off base, such as, again, I think that's how the Nation of Islam was able to flourish. Like you brought up the point, they were supposed to be the belief system of Africans. Back in the 60s, they were saying, oh, no, this is what Africans was down with, you worshiping the white man's religion and white Jesus and all that. But, bump that, man, get rid of it, follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and, all this kind of stuff. But then when you find out that Islam has a heinous history of slavery on the continent of Africa. I mean, we're talking about Africans being, castrated and kidnapped, taken to the Ottoman Empire. I mean, we're talking about a heinous strain. I mean, going back to Muhammad himself, when you don't have those sources and the access to that information in, 1960 in Harlem, then you can't really combat that. But nowadays we can actually look and see what's really going on. You see what I'm saying? So I just kind of want to come back on that point.
Yep, you are correct, sir. Going back to vocab said, David is the white Aunt Esther. It's crazy. I think he means that as an insult, but I think that is like the biggest compliment you could give me, right? I'm this super lovable, awesome, devout Christian,
right?
Calling everyone a heathen. You heathen. I remember Fred.
He's classic, man.
I remember George Foreman. George Foreman. This is after he won the heavyweight title. Was going to be on. You could tell because then all of a sudden, like one character becomes obsessed with George Foreman, and so you could tell. Oh, George Foreman's about to be on the show, and so Fred was talking. Fred was talking to. I forget one of his friends. Great. Anyway, he said George Foreman can beat anyone blindfolded, and his friend goes, "What about King Kong?" And he goes, "Blindfolded." And he goes, what about Godzilla? And he said, blindfolded. He goes, what about Aunt Esther? And Fred goes, That'd be the only way he'd beat him is blindfolded. And it's just funny. I remember this stuff from when I was a little. I remember this stuff from when I was a little kid watching this because it cracked me up so much. But
that's hilarious, bro. George Foreman was that dude, man. He was that dude, man.
Oh, George Foreman. Man, I wish he had better boxing skills when he was young. Because I mean, by the time when he fought Ali, he was just. He didn't have to have the best boxing skills because he was so powerful that just by swinging his arms back and forth. I was a Joe Frazier guy. I love Joe Frazier, and he just massacred Joe Frazier. He knocked him down like 6 times in 2 rounds. Every time he hit him, Joe goes flying. And so
you did that video the other day on what's his name?
Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury. You know, he beat the snot out of Deontay Wilder. And Deontay's is known for his punching power. And so people kind of they ask questions like where do you put Deontay Wilder and in terms of power punchers, he's up there with Tyson. You got your Foremans and there's a couple other guys as well. But I always go back to this interview I saw with Hulk Hogan. This has nothing to do with anything, but I got this interview with Hulk Hogan, and apparently they were on set filming something, and so Hulk Hogan comes up and is like just goofing around with Foreman, pretending to box him a little bit. He said that George Foreman playfully hit him with a jab in his shoulder. He said, no lie, it felt like he broke his arm. He really felt like he actually broke his arm. You know what I mean? George is no joke, man.
Holyfield. I mean, if you look at the old, he used to break heavy bags open, right? There's one, you'd see his trainer would be trying to hold a heavy bag, but he's hitting it so hard you could tell it's like shocking. It's like sending jolts of pain through his trainer to even hold on to that. But one of the best ever was George Foreman when he was older, right after he fought Jerry Cooney, said I've only fought 3 genuine punchers in my entire life, and he named Jerry Cooney, Ronnie Lyle, and then one other guy, I forget who it was, but Ronnie Lyle, that was he was another just insane punching power guy. I mean, if George Foreman is saying he said what it was like is he said they hit so hard that even if you completely block it, it hits you so hard that it shocks your entire body with pain. Jeez. And so that's got to be the same way it felt with George Foreman. But he said Ronnie Lyle. If you watch Foreman's fight with Ronnie Lyle, these guys were beating each other's heads in. With every single punch looked like it was a knockout blow, and these guys just kept going. I think for like 11 rounds or something like that. But it was
that's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was rough. But yeah, so I love.
What did
I put up here? Karugma. Oh yeah, he was just Karugma's. Karugma. How long is the William Lane Craig poll going on, and who's he going up against? I don't know.
Last I saw was James White. That's the last I saw. He was up against
William Lane Craig versus James White.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. That is.
I mean, it was. Last time I checked, it was a pretty landslide victory, looking like in favor of James White, actually.
Yeah, well, I mean, James has a huge online presence, right? Whereas Craig does more he goes around, does tons of lectures and stuff, and James does that too. But James has a bigger internet presence because he's constantly doing live streams and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, particularly on Twitter too. He's really active on Twitter.
Yeah. So guys, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But if you like William Lane Craig better, then go for William Lane Craig. If you like James White better, then go over there and vote for James White. Wait, what did I say? Yeah, vote for whoever you like better.
I think you said vote for. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I think you said it right.
I have a problem that I'm reading at the same time that I'm trying to talk about whatever I was just talking about, and some people are great at that. I'm terrible at it.
Some people
some people are I don't know how many brains they have in their head, but they can be reading comments and responding to something.
It's like me when we were in South Carolina reading at that church, man. I just zip right through it,
You know who's weird? Sam Shamoon, as dumb as he is in every other way, and as horrible as his live streams are, and as much of an embarrassment as he is to apologetics. Sam can actually be listening to multiple things at once, right? You'd be sitting there talking to him, and he's like, giving, just arguing with you and stuff like this, and all of a sudden he'll go, "Hey, you," and then he'll respond to something one of them said in his conversation. He'll be like, "Okay, yes, go to First Peter, look up the, all right, back to you," right? And so he'll do that where he'll be typing an article on one topic while simultaneously like listening to a debate, and he'll remember everything from the debate and still be typing the entire time. So
I don't know how you do that. Yeah.
Anyway, I guess if your brain does not work in normal areas like getting along with people and living a normal life and functioning in society, that your brain is just turbocharged to deal with those kinds of issues. You know what I mean?
Are you a Trekkie? Are you a Star Trek fan?
Yeah.
You know how like when there's always like this fight scene, like the ship fight scene where they got to divert all the shields into like one area?
Yeah. The brain. Yeah. All power to forward shields.
Right, exactly. Somebody asked the question: does David Wood ever age?
Yeah.
Are you a cyborg or something?
I think some, but yeah, I don't know if I have any. Do I have any wrinkles or something? I don't know. Yeah, probably a little, but yeah, it'll probably catch up with me. A little when I get a little older.
You live stream with like that filter, like how you do on your phone, where it kind of like keeps you younger or older. Like you got like this live feed filter.
You think I know how to use filters? I don't know what the heck I'm doing. All right. Let's go to the. I have a list here of all the super chats. Let's make sure I got to all those.
Oh, okay, cool.
Had a super sticker with a looks like some sort of blue bird holding up a thumbs up from Tochukwu the Joku. Thank you for that super sticker. Patar Milik said, Zakir Naik claims Muhammad is in Isaiah 29. It would be less ridiculous if my 7-year-old cousin said this about the Little Mermaid, said that this is about the Little Mermaid. Yeah, he is correct. The claim is that Muhammad is, because in Isaiah 29, it says that, you will give the book to one who can read. I mean, you will give the scroll to one who can read, and he'll say, "I can't read it. It's sealed." And you will give the scroll to someone who can't read, and he'll say, "I can't read it. It's because I can't read." Right. This is talking about the rebellion of the people of Israel, and so this thing is, Isaiah is giving them this scroll about all the the judgments that are going to come upon them and stuff like this. And he's saying these people are so hard-hearted that they'll make excuses for not accepting the word of God. And then Muslims go to verse 13, which says, "You will give the scroll to someone who can't read," and he will say, "I can't read." And they take an incident of Muhammad's life where the angel Gabriel supposedly showed up to him, told him, "Read," and he said, "I can't read." And so they say, "You see, this is talking about a prophet." When you look at it, it's not talking about a prophet. It's talking about someone who is stubbornly in rebellion against against God, and stubbornly rebels against him. And so if you're saying that's Muhammad, great. It's not about a prophet. That means he's in rebellion against the true God. And so great. If you think that's
nice,
that's where you're going, Zakir Naik. Amen.
I had fun with it. Is that the same dude? Now, I could be getting them mixed up, but you had that video with William Lane Craig recently, where you were talking about that apologist. Is that same guy? Or
No. We're talking about Zakir Naik. Zakir Naik is, Yusuf Estes is still massively popular as well, but Zakir Naik's probably the most popular Muslim apologist in the world. But notice, that's the kind of argument that the top guys in the world are given, and so. Gosh, imagine if those are the kinds of arguments we have. Google user posted a picture of a flower and said, "For the ladies, keep looking fantastic."
What?
And then,
okay.
And then Patar said, "If Mahmad equals Muhammad, then I'm Peter Pan." Patar is the Serbian translation of Peter. By the way, Patar, it's spelled differently, so I'm assuming it's pronounced differently. Is it pronounced just like Peter, or is it pronounced differently?
You've been murdering his name this whole time, basically? Or?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he says it's Serbian. Riaz Qureshi said, "A senior citizen marrying a preschooler? No way." So I guess that was a comment back on when we were talking about the fact that we couldn't believe the fact that it was happening. COD, LG, Lisa Look, Ready Made, all with super chats or super stickers. Pitar in there again. Man, you're in there a lot. The Imam praising. Oh, I already read that one. Hi from New Zealand. Sarah Nicholas said, hi from New Zealand. God bless you both. Keep it up. I heard that New Zealand's actually doing pretty well. Although I don't understand how you wouldn't be doing even better in New Zealand. You're on an island, right? Very, very easy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right.
That'd be a situation where I would probably do a full quarantine, right? Like, if you are showing up from a plane, we understand that you got to come home. If you're showing up on a plane, then you have to go stay in this hotel or something like that, this sterilized hotel in your own room until we test you, and then you keep anyone from getting it ever. And then I would say, other than that, we're sticking it on our island and let the rest of the world figure things out.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly legit. I mean, why not? You know what I'm saying?
Fedar Fencer, King Charles. Fedar said, David, when Nabil was a Muslim, did it trouble you thinking he thought he knew God but didn't? I have this worry with a Muslim friend of mine. Thanks. No, it didn't worry me that he thought he knew God. It does present a more of an obstacle. I mean, on the one hand, almost anyone you're talking to believes they're right about what they believe, right? Not a lot of people think, yeah, I'm probably wrong about the main things I believe. So, in that sense, that's pretty normal. But kind of the more they believe they have the truth, then the kind of rougher it is to get them to see anything from a different perspective. But the cool thing about Muslims believing that they really have the truth and they really know God is pretty much everything they believe is based on something that is very, very easy to refute. Right? This just never happens. They never hear the facts from their family or their imam or anyone they're around. And the vast majority of Christians that they ever come in contact with, or the vast majority of atheists that they ever come in contact with, just aren't. They don't know how to respond to these kinds of things. But once you do learn those things, once you do learn how to refute their claims that the Quran's been perfectly preserved, that the Quran contains scientific miracles and things like that, once you're in that position, it's very easy to start ripping these things apart. And you take someone like Nabil, right?
Hey.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, good.
Oh, I was just going to say.
I was going to say something too. I mean, yeah, I think that I remember I was in college, my freshman year in college. There was this guy Hannibal. He was like a RA. You know what I'm saying? So he was a couple years ahead, and like real cool dude. He was a Muslim. You know what I'm saying? And I'm coming from a Christian background. I hadn't really interacted with folks from a whole lot of different worldviews and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so this dude, he was just a really good dude, man. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He was always kind of people on that kind of stuff. And so I'm thinking like, man, this guy's a Muslim, you know what I'm saying? But, he's a really nice dude. Like maybe I'm tripping here, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's something to this Islam thing. But to your point, like I kind of, as I began studying more, I realized that, sometimes we evaluate people, based on standards that obviously, God doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Like there are people who can, who are straight up atheists who can do really good things for people or whatever, but it's not about that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not about, even what somebody believes about themselves. I mean, the Bible talks about, I mentioned earlier, the heart of man is desperately wicked. Mm-hmm. You can deceive yourself in terms of your standing with God, obviously. So at the end of the day, there are just certain things that are true about the world. It is true that Jesus is Lord, rose from the grave, that, Yahweh is God, there's a Trinity. Those things are just true. And regardless of how we behave in this world or what we believe about ourselves, at the end of the day, if we're not aligning with the gospel, you know what I'm saying, if we're out of step with the gospel, then we rejected salvation. So I think sometimes we can evaluate people based on maybe I don't know, cultural, societal standards of good and whatever. But it's it's really not about that. God has laid out His truth, and whether we align with it or not, that's really what we're going to be judged by. So,
yeah, and this kind of connects to the comment earlier saying, hey,
about you not letting black people think for themselves.
Let black people think for themselves. Don't talk to them like they're like you talk to any other person, right? Just leave them in their own category and don't interact with them like that. Right. Because I'm saying this, I'm talking about a connection here because Muslims think that when you criticize their views and you say, hey, you said that Muhammad is the greatest man ever. Actually, look at all this stuff he did. You think that the Quran is the greatest book ever? Actually, look at all these problems. They think that when you're saying that, you're insulting them and, treating them as bad. And the people who are telling them, oh, no, your religion is wonderful and it's great and there are no problems with it. And it's it's the bee's knees. The people who are telling them that are honoring them. And I just see it as the complete reverse, right? I mean, when I tell you, when I say, oh, you just believe whatever you want, whatever makes you feel good, it's like I'm saying to you, I do not believe that you are a person who's capable of rationally thinking, listening to my criticisms, working your way through them, and either refuting my criticisms or acknowledging that, I have a point, right? I'm saying you're not that kind of, when I don't want to address people like that, it seems like I'm degrading them, and I'm saying you're not in that category. When I tell a Muslim, hey, you believe, you claiming all these things, here are the refutations. To me, that's a higher view of them. There I'm saying, hey, I believe you're capable of getting to the bottom of this. I believe you're capable of seeing through the nonsense that you've been taught. I believe that you are a person who ultimately is looking for the truth. Now, you could prove me wrong. You could prove that you're not interested in truth, right? But I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt at the beginning and assume the best, namely that if you're wrong, you want to know it. And and that you want to know the truth about God, and you want to know the truth about Jesus, and you want to know the truth even about Muhammad and again, you could prove me wrong. You could prove me, no, you don't actually care about the truth at all. But until I see that you really don't care about the truth, I'm going to assume the best and keep presenting facts to you. And it's just again, the idea that that's mean or hateful is just so weird to me.
That's why you know what that reminds me, man. Like real quick, so I'm a social worker by trade, and I used to work at just basically kind of like a halfway house, if you will. It was a center for kids who'd either run away or got into some trouble and they're trying to get right, things like that. And I never forget, man. There was this conversation between these two kids one time while I was on the shift. And one of them was like complaining about their mom. Like, my mom makes me, wash the dishes, and she won't let me go out and do this. And you see all these complaints about, these restrictions in our household. And one of the other kids, and I knew their backgrounds. They didn't know each other's backgrounds, but I knew their backgrounds, each of them individually. And the other kid, who I knew came from just a terrible situation, she like stopped. Was like, man, like, what are you complaining about? Yeah. I would love for my mom to correct me and lay down the law on this, because it was crazy. This kid was like 12, yeah. And she's like, because it says that your mom loves you, she's willing to correct you and be involved in your life that way. She's not trying to be mean. She's trying to tell you that she loves you. And I think it's the same kind of concept. Like, if I don't care nothing about you, then yeah, you can go ahead and, live however you want, believe however you want. But, if I really believe that Jesus has revealed himself, God has revealed himself in the earth through Jesus Christ. And there are eternal implications, to, whether you reject the gospel or not. Then if I don't care about you, then yeah, I'm not going to say anything. But if I really love you, if I really care about you, then I'm going to be like that mom you mentioned earlier, where you're telling that child to get out of the street, or whatever it may be. And even on top of that, not just eternal, but even in the here and now. Your worldview has everything to do with how you function in the world. And the reality is, when you really break down Islam in terms of what Islam, if you follow it to its logical conclusions, like what it's really about, it's not just, okay, I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe. No, Islam is about establishing, that caliphate. It's about establishing Muslim rule in any given area. Mm-hmm. Now, if that's where you're trying to go with it, then yeah, I definitely have a problem with it, mm-hmm. because that's going to impact how I live, mm-hmm. how people around me live that I love, and the individual that I'm dealing with. So there's both eternal and there's like right here and right now implications of this stuff. So of course, if we care about people, we gotta address it. Mm-hmm. We gotta address it.
Yeah, and who had a cool comment on this? Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller. Yeah. Penn. So Penn was a diehard atheist. He used to have he had a show with Teller where they would just blast the Bible and so on, and say that the best way to make an atheist is to read the Bible, and they'd just be making fun of it the entire time. But Penn, he would also just come on and just sort of post a video and stuff like that on his channel and so on. He would say, after my show, a Christian came up to me afterwards and he said, hey, here's a Bible in case you ever need one and want to read it. And he'd say, I just thought that was cool. So here's a guy who clearly believes, and he wanted me to know it. But what's cool about Penn is he said, if you're a Christian and you believe there's a heaven and you believe there's a hell, what kind of contempt must you have for me if you do not come up to me and tell me? Wow. And he said that's why, as much as I rag on the Bible and stuff like that, he said I have much more respect for people who come up and tell me why I should believe this, rather than than for the people who just walk by and are worried about my feelings and so on. So anyway, it's cool.
That's deep.
It's cool.
That's deep.
Cool perspective. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this stuff really matters, man. I mean, it matters, like I said, I mean, both eternally and here and now. Actually, now I think about it, I was tripping because I was watching your debate that you had with Matt Dillahunty the other day. And, anyway, I'm going to resist, some of my comments here. But, he was talking about his framework for morality. It's like, well, yeah, we can, if you agree that, there's, these things that we want to accomplish. And, if you don't agree that you don't have a moral obligation, he's just real kind of flowery and flimsy with it. I'm like, fam, like, have you interacted with people of these different worldviews? Have you really sat down and talked with a Muslim in terms of like what it is that they agree upon amongst other Muslims in terms of what they want for the world? Like this la-di-da, everybody come together in the name of reason, and we're all going to agree on human flourishing. It's a pipe dream, man.
Yeah,
it's a pipe dream.
It's I mean, the whole time. I mean, I'm thinking along the same lines that you are, but I mean, I said it in my opening statement. I said, when a Christian makes a moral claim, atheists are ready to dial up their skepticism to 10 and prove this conclusively that we have this moral obligation, that there's this, prove it. Yeah. Or it's nonsense until you give us all this proof. And then they'll base their entire moral framework. Human beings just seek well-being, and we can sit down and come up with rules and figure out well-being. And even if we're just completely selfish, then we wouldn't want to do anything wrong because we'd want a great world. And even if we could steal something, we wouldn't. And it's like, you guys clearly are not applying any level of skepticism to these claims. It's more like, let me say anything that is different from your view, and
right.
I will not subject it to the slightest bit of criticism or scrutiny. I'll just claim it, and that's good enough for me. And really, this isn't just a Dillahunty problem. It's a certain kind of atheist problem, right? So I'm not saying that all atheists are like that. I know atheists who are intellectually brutal. I mean, they're just shredding arguments, trying to get to the truth and so on. But I mean, you just see guys and they say we're skeptics and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We're skeptics. And then so you start making a let's say Kalam cosmological argument. You say, whatever begins to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. And you start, looking into what kind of cause it has to be. And then they're like, well, how do you know the universe began to exist? Oh, you can prove it philosophically and mathematically and scientifically, but that's not enough because I can be super skeptical of that and deny all that. And you're going to claim that, and they become, and you're saying that whatever begins to exist must have a cause. Prove that. How do I know that something just can't come out of nothing, right? And they become like these, insanely extreme skeptics. But then you say, okay, what's your response to fine-tuning? Oh, there's a multiverse out there. There's this infinite array of alternative universes, and it's ours somehow popped out of that. Really? What? Okay, that sounds like an extraordinary claim to me. What's your extraordinary evidence? I saw it in a YouTube video. And that's your evidence, right? Or life can form from non-life, okay? Right? You got scientists in all these labs, and they're working at how do you actually get from life to non-life? It clearly happened. Because we're here, right?
The puddle analogy starts coming up, and then you got all these.
My 10th grade biology teacher said, hey, you got the cosmic soup there, and it mixed together, and something happened, and bam, right? Really, that's your level of skepticism with something like life can form out of none. That's your level of skepticism. So
life, rationality on top of that. I mean, it's not that we're just like these living beings. We got the ability to reason. I mean, somehow that just kind of fell into place. I mean, there's all these different factors. But to your point, though, I mean, it's like their skepticism. They're not consistent with their skepticism. You know what I'm saying? I agree with you. Yeah, and now obviously, again, I mean, that's not everybody. Yeah. But I think it's more common. Particularly in this this den of evil, I'm saying, called the internet. I mean, it just they just kind of come out of the woodworks. But what trips me out though is when you present this well-reasoned case. Now here's my thing. I don't know any apologist that would say that, okay, well, I'm going to give you the Kalam, and you're going to have no choice but to bow your knee to the cross like right now. You know what I'm saying? That, I don't know any apologist who presents evidence for God's existence in that manner. The reality is to say, we're saying, hey, look, there's a reasonable case that can be made. Like, you don't have to, we're not Looney Tunes out here. We're not crazy and just touchy-feely, making our way through the world and believing in Jesus. No, here's a reasonable case for Christ here. You know what I'm saying? And if you choose after hearing that case, if you choose to reject God, then, well, that is what it is. I'm saying God's not going to remove your ability to reject him just because I gave you the Kalam. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, he gave those three steps. If he gave him that syllogism, bam, he's got to convert now. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is something that people need. That's why I pulled out a skeptometer in the debate. Is I think this needs to be emphasized way more than it is, because you've got all these atheists out there like Richard Dawkins and all these other guys, and they're going around saying, just give us the evidence, just show us the evidence. And then I should probably post this soon, but I have an interview with Richard Dawkins where he was asked, what if God did exist, what evidence could he give you that he exists? And Dawkins said, well, years ago I would have said that, if I hear some voice, Richard Dawkins, believe in me, blah blah blah. He said, I thought that would convince me, but then I realized if that happened, I would just think that I'm hallucinating, right? So, him and Peter Boghossian, Peter Boghossian's the guy who like made a manual for creating atheists or something like that.
Yeah, he's what's that system he calls it? I know Cameron does stuff on it all the time. I'm drawing a blank now. I know he wrote a whole book on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's interesting because Peter Boghossian ended up agreeing with Dawkins, but they kept going back and forth thinking they got to the point where they're saying, even if I walked outside and there's a message written out in the stars, Richard Dawkins, believe in me, I would just conclude that there must be powerful aliens who are trying to trick me. And you start realizing this guy is admitting that there is absolutely no evidence that he wouldn't explain away, right? Like if God showed up and started blasting lightning bolts, he would just say, wow, powerful aliens are trying to trick me. Like there's nothing. Right. Peter Atkins is even more extreme, right? He's a Oxford atheist chemist, and he's debated Craig before. But
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly.
He said if I died and I found myself standing in front of St. Peter and the pearly gates, I'm still not going to believe. I'm going to think this is some sort of insane delusion or something like that. Even after my death, I'm not going to believe. And so,
actually, that sounds like. Now, I'm not trying to jump too far here, but I remember you quoted some guy. I want to say it was a Muslim cleric or something like that, who said that even if he had 1 foot in heaven, he still wouldn't believe that he was there because.
No, that was Abu Bakr. That was Abu Bakr, Muhammad's best friend. That's Aisha's dad. Abu Bakr.
There you go.
And he's the first. He's the first caliph. He was the first ruler after Muhammad. But so I mean, what you're finding out is all these guys who are going around saying, "Show me the evidence." I just go over the evidence point. They've constructed an ideology that is impervious to evidence, right? That's why they can say, you can give them the Kalam cosmological argument or the argument from fine tuning or biological design. You can give them all this evidence. They just say it's no evidence at all. There's no evidence. You've shown me no evidence. They can say it's no evidence because they've constructed a methodology that is impervious to evidence. And just to kind of illustrate what that looks like, right? Everyone imagine, let's pretend I'm a metaphysical solipsist, right? A solipsist is someone who believes. A metaphysical solipsist is a person who believes he's the only thing that exists, right? So if I was convinced that I'm the only thing that exists, right? I'm some sort of consciousness that is all that exists, and there's nothing else that exists anywhere else. But sort of to keep myself entertained, I sort of invent this world around me in my imagination. Kind of like if you're dreaming, you invent things that happen, right? But they believe, on a much bigger scale. I'm all that exists, and all this is made to keep myself occupied because there's nothing else for all eternity. And so I invent all this world. Now imagine such a person believes that, and he says, okay, if you think I'm wrong about metaphysical solipsism, prove to me that I'm wrong. There's nothing you can say. There is no evidence. Anything you say to give him an argument, he views it as a figment of his imagination. So there is, notice this, every atheist in the world would say, this guy has a ridiculous worldview. But guess what? You couldn't refute it because he's constructed it in such a way that any evidence against him would be reinterpreted as just the figment of his own imagination. Well, you've got Dawkins and co. saying they've done that, but just on a bigger scale, right? The natural world. The natural world is all that exists. And any evidence that could possibly be given for something beyond the natural world, they would simply reinterpret as something caused by something within the natural world. And so they're doing the same thing. And I just think this needs to be pointed out. It's
well, to your point, actually what you're describing is not just like a atheist versus the Bible type of a problem. I'm saying, like, when you look at the field of epistemology, right? Much of it has to do with how can we put together a framework whereby we can say we know X, Y, and Z, but we're not opening the door so wide that people can affirm crazy claims and get away with it. But at the same time, we're not closing the window so small, that we're not allowing like legitimate inferences and observations about the world to be held with some level of credibility. I mean, that's a huge discussion in the field of epistemology in general. And so what you're describing with Dawkins and Matt Dillahunty, I would describe, I mean, it's bad epistemology at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Is that they've weighted, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, it's like playing with weighted dice. You know what I'm saying? From an epistemological standpoint, where they're not really, I feel like they're letting their biases show. At the end of the day, you're just saying, I don't care what you have to say. I'm not going to believe regardless.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be snarky about it in the process. I mean, that's really what a lot of it comes down to.
Yeah, and the reason I want to really drive this point home in some videos is lots of people let other people do some of their investigation and higher level thinking for them. In other words, most people who are working, they don't have time to go through volumes on quantum physics or studying the universe. They don't have time to learn all of cosmology, or they don't have time to learn. They don't have time to spend years really going through the evidence for the resurrection. They can learn that. They can learn the basics, but they don't have time to really just read the tons and tons of literature. So they rely on Gary Habermas to do that for them, or if it's cosmology, they'll rely on I'm talking about Christians now. They rely on William Lane Craig to do that for them. But different groups, right? Like Muslims, they're relying on Zakir Naik to do their research for them, which is just hilarious because as far as I can tell, Zakir Naik has no clue what he's talking about. So that's the sad situation. But lots of atheists, they're leaving a lot of their wrestling with Christian issues in the hands of like Richard Dawkins and things like that, right? So they think, in other words, they're thinking if you bring up an argument and they can't answer it, they're thinking, yeah, but Richard Dawkins could do it, or this guy could. And what's amazing to me is you get to the people that they've entrusted to do their thinking for them, and it's guys who are, at the end of now, they're finally acknowledging, it doesn't matter what the evidence is, I would never believe it anyway. So notice you can come up with a kind of rule here, right? There's a kind of rule here. It goes something like this: Richard Dawkins rejecting an argument, saying, "Ha, this is a bad argument. I reject it." That tells you absolutely nothing about whether the argument is good or bad, because Richard Dawkins is going to reject it either way. If it's a brilliant airtight argument for the existence of God, Dawkins is going to reject it and say it's no evidence at all. But if it's a garbage argument for the existence of God, Richard Dawkins is still gonna reject it. So either way, Richard Dawkins is going to reject it. Richard Dawkins dismissing arguments tells you nothing, atheists. So you need to actually start looking into them yourself, because that guy can't be trusted.
Well, yeah, and to your point, I mean, I think that, and now this actually cuts both ways. I mean, I'm very suspicious of people on whether it be the atheists or whether it be Christians who are like, oh, well, there's just no good arguments for the other side. There's nothing to be grappled with over there. I mean, like even some of our tough, sharpest guys, whether it be William Lane Craig, thinking about Swinburne, I mean, all these guys. I mean, they're like, they're wrestling with real stuff. I mean, they're working their way through these arguments for a reason. You know what I'm saying? It's because it's something that needs to be grappled with. So when I come across the atheists, it's like, oh, there's just no evidence. There's just nothing that you guys have on your side of the coin. I'm like, okay, so that means you're probably not really either reading the best material on this subject, if you're reading at all, or you're just not really taking this seriously, And if and I know we're not doing like a review of Dillahunty here, but if you don't mind, I gotta get, because this is like one of my pet peeves. I was watching the y'all's debate the other day, and one thing that just ticks me off is where somebody like a Dillahunty, I've seen him do this several times, I want to say, is where they basically allege that you've assaulted a straw man, but you really haven't assaulted a straw man. Like you kept making this distinction between atheism and secular humanism, which obviously they're two different things. And he's like, well, you keep talking about atheism, but I'm defending secular humanism. But the reality is, if you understand the atheistic worldview, if you understand it to be the denial of the proposition that God exists, I'm saying you do not believe that God exists. If that's an overarching worldview, and secular humanism is somewhere down here. And the fact of the matter is, for every proposition, there's going to be there's going to be a number of different implications that you can get from that proposition. So if you say that God does not exist, if you hold that position, there are implications of that. And some of those implications intersect with what you would affirm as a secular humanist. So it's totally appropriate to address atheism in the context of making a critique of his secular humanism.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
and
irritating.
And I mean, really, if my sort of side of the issue is God, well, atheism is the negation of that, right? So if I'm saying, hey, my worldview gives us moral realism, the alternative, atheism, doesn't give us moral realism, and here are the implications of that, and here's how it will undermine your worldview. I think it's just, I don't know. It seems like they just start yelling straw man whenever you either quote them or you go with the implications of anything, and it seems like his fans
or respond to what he just said 5 seconds before.
Yeah, or repeat what he said.
Right.
Any of that's a straw man, which is funny because I'll probably end up making videos about this. I have never seen anyone straw man Christianity as much as Dillahunty, right? I have not followed him at all. I think I watched one video clip of him a couple years ago. It's a part of something he said in a debate with Mike Licona. I can't think of anything else, so I haven't been following him until just now. But just looking at the comments he makes, if once you say God did it, you stop. You just stop. That's all reasoning stops, and you say, okay, we're done. We're done reasoning. And I'm thinking, once again, what planet do you live on? Right. I mean, Nicholas Copernicus believed God did it. That didn't stop him from going and sitting down doing all the mathematics of trying to come up with a better model of the universe.
Sure.
Galileo believed God did it. Johannes Kepler believed God did it. All these guys, every figure of the scientific revolution, every last one. Just so everyone knows, the scientific revolution is roughly the period from Nicholas Copernicus down to Isaac Newton, when Isaac Newton comes up with his, applying all the, all these laws to the entire universe.
Right.
That's the period of the scientific revolution, with zero exceptions. Every last one of these figures of the entire scientific revolution believed that God did it, and that did not stop them from trying to figure it all out. In fact, if you look at their quotations, that was the driving force. They believe that they're created in the image of God and that this has an intellectual component. And they believe that they're actually performing a kind of worship by trying to understand how God did it. And so it's the driving force. And you got someone like Dillahunty saying, nope, once you believe God did it, that stops it all. And so the entire scientific revolution refutes everything he says, and it doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter. And so Notice the point here is that is a massive straw man, right? This is what Christians do. This would be like me coming to atheists. Imagine I walked up imagine I was talking with Adam and you overheard our conversation. I said, you know what atheists do? As soon as a person becomes an atheist, he just sits around and says everything's meaningless, and he sits in his room until he dies because he concludes that everything is meaningless. That's what atheists do. You guys would say, what is wrong with you? You are so idiotic. Why would you make a claim like that? You know we don't do that. Why would you say it, right? But guys, that's exactly how we feel when you say, nope, once you say God did it, you stop all reasoning, you stop all investigation. You're completely proven wrong by the entire history of the last 2,000 years, and it doesn't stop you from making it, which means, once again, your claims are just impervious to evidence. And the real thing here, Adam, that I find absolutely hilarious, these are the guys who claim we're skeptics. Nothing gets inside these brains except what's proven true. And yet you start looking at the claims they made, and all of their claims that they're claiming have been proven false, and they just don't care. So they don't care about reality. They don't care about facts. It's not really about atheism. It's about certain kind of atheists. How do we get down this rabbit trail? Anyway, what you said you wanted to say something.
Man, I was going to just kind of add to your point, though. I mean, like, so for somebody, and I'm not trying to beat up on Dillahunty, so actually I'll take this off of him, but for individuals, like that, I can see, let's say you just got into atheism like yesterday, and you say you joined some Facebook forum and a bunch of people are ranting against Christianity, and you kind of absorb that, and so you got this attitude like, oh yeah, those dumb Christians, they don't believe, they don't follow the scientific method, whatever. I'm saying, I get that. I'm saying you don't know any better. But if you've been around the block for a while, if you've debated several different well-versed Christians, like people who can not, say a thing about the Bible and just deal with you on philosophical grounds alone, you know what I'm saying, and demonstrate the existence of God, and you've been down this road 1,000 times, then at some point, I have to say that it's kind of just disrespectful for you to continue to characterize people as like these mindless, non-critical thinking, Bible zombies or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, at some point, it's like you're just making a decision to not acknowledge, that, hey, we really are bringing something to the table, that's worth grappling with here on intellectual grounds, But so I don't know. I just want to throw that in there, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we got down that road. I'm sure it's your fault though. I'm sure it had nothing to do with me.
All right. Well, we've been going a long time. We definitely want to wrap up before 10. So let me burn through the rest of these super chats and super stickers real quick. Let's see. Where'd that comment go? Ada says, "Hey, David and Adam, are all your stores empty too because of the coronavirus?"
No, I mean, not like completely empty. I mean, bread's a little tough, to come by. Of course, toilet paper. I don't know what it is about toilet paper. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, I mean, there's been like other crises that go on, and I mean, I could be wrong, but
yeah, I would not have expected that one, but that was. I think a few people are like, oh, we got to get all the toilet paper, but that set everyone else into a panic. Right? Like, oh, everyone's buying up all the toilet paper. I have to get on this too, and then it caused like mass hysteria.
Yeah, I mean, I bought some too. Actually, I mean, I did the same thing. I was like, oh snap! Like maybe it's maybe that's why.
Like I get the hand sanitizer. I get wanting to stock up on hand sanitizer. If you're like, I'm going to be using this every day, everywhere I go. I get that. But yeah, so as far as I've seen, yeah, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, sometimes paper towels. Other than that, it's things are pretty well stocked. P. Hubinet said, "Hey guys, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Also, I've been doing street ministry for years, but in the past few weeks, I can tell you that sharing the gospel is like shooting fish in a barrel. Just saying." So,
okay.
finding street evangelism easy.
Street epistemology. That's what I was trying to say. I was struggling trying to come up with that. With you mentioned Boghossian. I think it's street epistemology.
Yeah.
That's a system. Yeah.
Amateur Ant says, everybody is kung fu fighting, lol, insert the beats. By the way, China made this bioweapon and it backfired. It came from Wuhan where they have a lab. I don't know about that, but you said you're big on conspiracy theories.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I did entertain, this idea that maybe it's man-made. I don't think that it is. Again, and that's partly because when I look back at human history, I mean, what we're experiencing hasn't happened in a while, you know what I mean? But it's not really anything unusual. I mean, pandemics happen, you know what I'm saying? Epidemics happen. So I'm trying to keep my conspiracy side under wraps.
The Synagogue said, David, where would one approach you with a debate offer? I have a Muslim gentleman, Nadir Ahmed, who wants to debate you, and I'd like to host, but this is the only way I know to reach you. I don't know if you know the history of Nadir Ahmed. But
no, you got me. Yeah.
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about.
Okay.
Nadir comes out of nowhere every few years, and then he says everyone's scared of him, everyone's running from him, he can destroy everyone, and we ignore him for a while, and then we finally get sick of it, and then we debate him and crush him, and then he disappears for a few years, and then all of a sudden he'll come out again. So the last wave of Nadir Ahmed, I did 2 debates with him, and they were both in a church. And one of them was on his Islam religion of peace. And I walked on afterwards, and the pastor there, he goes, it was like you were clubbing a baby seal up there, man. We started feeling just bad for the guy that you're just sitting there clubbing him and clubbing him and clubbing him and clubbing him. And so
just put him out of his misery.
Yeah, the idea that we should be giving Nadir Ahmed attention, I don't know. It's gonna have to be. There's going to have to be a good reason for it. Like some organization wants to choose him as their champion so that it's... Because the problem with Nadir is you can completely destroy Nadir and then everyone says, what? We don't care about him. And so what did you accomplish? So if some organization wants to come and say Nadir is our champion, I'd be happy to oblige there. Other than that...
I like seeing you get into your anti-atheism bag, man. I thought that was a good debate. I like seeing you in that mode, man. I hope, you got any more like that, coming up or anything you might be doing with that?
Well, I mean, I'm about to debate the apostate prophet. We're gonna have a debate on. Yeah. And so I'm kind of gonna stick to the moral argument for a while and pointing out problems with the atheist responses and so on, and basically take on all challengers and things like that for a little while and see how that goes. And we'll see what happens.
Can I do a shameless plug with that, or
what's that?
Can I do a shameless plug on that note?
You can do all the plugs you want.
Yeah, cool. I just did shout out to everybody who was involved in the Cyber City conference put on by Vocab Malone last week. And so actually I did a session on my channel, Tru-ID Apologetics, on the problem with, quote, black atheism. You know what I'm saying? Atheism in the African American context kind of takes on certain cultural flavorings, and it's actually gaining some traction. And so I basically gave like four different versions of the moral argument, and also addressed the argument for reason as well. You know what I'm saying? And just basically showed how you can demonstrate God's existence from the moral argument, but also how the lack of or basically an atheistic perspective is not able to account for morality, and kind of how that would negatively play out, particularly in the African American context. So people might want to check that out.
And actually, you have a you have a good book chapter on that where, you point out that for atheists who are saying, oh, because of the history of slavery in America, and they're pointing to all these injustices and saying, therefore, there's no God. You then lose the moral framework for pointing out that all those things are horrible and wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, if you had a Dawkins frame of mind where we're machines for propagating DNA, how in the world do you say it's wrong to enslave another person? I mean, you can say it, but how do you actually defend it? I mean, I have a machine for making toast. You wouldn't say that I shouldn't. I can't own that. I have another machine for propagating DNA. That's a dog, right? A dog is a machine for propagating DNA. We don't have a problem with me owning that. There's another machine for propagating DNA. It's a cow. You have no problem with me killing and eating that. I mean, some people would, but most people don't. And so you take the cow and you kill the cow and you eat the cow. Well, there's this other machine for propagating DNA, and it's smarter than the cow, and therefore you're just not allowed to do it. There's no basis for that within atheism, and so
no. As a matter of fact, I mean, just real quick, I mean, if depending on which way you want to go with it, if you subscribe to, say, like maybe someone like a Sam Harris kind of view, or I'm not even gonna put it on him, but like if you believe that morality is grounded somehow in evolution or something like that, then the reality is, if you look at human history, and just well, actually not just human history, just natural selection. I mean, the story of natural selection is survival of the fittest. You know what I'm saying? I mean, survival is the highest ethic. You know what I'm saying? So if you're exerting your power over somebody else to, gain some sort of a survival advantage, then you've actually acted in accord with your evolutionary programming. So really, for anybody who believes that the evolution is the grounding for morality, then actually slavery was right. That's what you would expect on that kind of a framework. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kinds of moral absurdities that you end up with when you start getting off kilter with the moral framework. Yeah. The classic saying is, nature is red in tooth and nail. Right. Nature is a big bloodbath. So if that's what we are, and that's where we come from, guys, we can sit down and we can agree to things, and we can agree to certain things that we're going to live by to make our lives easier, and but there's nothing remotely resembling any sort of objective moral obligation. It's just not there. And just stop acting like you can really make these kinds of moral claims. All right, let's we want to be off in a couple minutes, so let's cool. Last couple Jacob Ellinger said, just a reminder, the governor of Michigan has banned the cure for coronavirus. That would be odd, because I didn't know there was a cure for coronavirus, so take a closer look at that. MJ Jackson said, what's good, people? Abiogenesis Zero Proof said, please address how atheism leads to social Darwinism. That might need to actually do an entire show on something like that, but that is a very interesting topic on implications of different worldviews. So I'd be happy to cover that in a live stream. And Mr. Phil Fox said, haha, love the jihadi tears. Adam, is there a need to have subgroups like black atheism, black church, or should we just view each other as saved and unsaved? That's a good question. As a matter of fact, there's a gentleman named Dr. Umar Johnson. I did a response to him kind of along the same lines. Now, I don't want to spend too much time, guys. It was like a 3-hour show that I did on it. You know what I'm saying? But in short, I believe that I think, it's kind of, going back to Tru-ID. I believe that the foundation of who we are is that we're made in the image of God. And I think you have a reiteration of that, from a covenantal standpoint, when you come into when you come to Christ. So the foundation of who we are is who we are in God, who we are in Christ. With that being said, I do believe that God has created us with certain capacities to relate to one another in ways that tend toward forming cultures and nations and things of that nature. So like even if, let's say, the fall of man never happened, I'm saying just basically, if you got two different groups who are, geographically apart from one another, they're going to form cultures. They're going to be different. I'm saying they're going to eat different foods and listen to different music. I think that's part of God's artist side, if you will. So so I said that to say I don't think that God has a problem, with people referring to one another based upon some of these subcategories of ethnicity, even in the scriptures. I mean, just to be, completely explicit about it, just real quick. I mean, you have passages in Acts where it refers to the Gentile Christians and the Gentile Jews and those who were of the circumcision or something, things of that nature. And then Paul himself says that, he said, I would rather be accursed for my brethren in the flesh, referring to the Jews. I mean, so he still has some sort of, connection with his ethnic heritage. So I don't think there's anything wrong with ethnic heritage. I think it's a beautiful thing, and there's nothing wrong with us acknowledging that, as long as we don't have a feature of who we are and make it the foundation of who we are, which is that we're made in the image of God. I think that's the key.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I'm thinking there is a different category of faith. If your main arguments or your main reasoning as far as atheism is based on certain experiences of the black community, that's kind of different. That's kind of different from what someone like Dawkins is addressing. So,
right,
if it's kind of grounded in other issues, then in order to clarify what you're talking about, you might want that subcategory. Now, to be clear, I think you could have a black atheist whose view is not really what you're talking about is black atheism, right? He might be exactly parallel to Richard Dawkins or something like that. But there is a sort of, and I think this is probably true of various groups in the world, that they can have. I think you could be a woman and have kind of different reasons for different kinds of objections against theism and Christianity than other. And so, you have like in philosophy, there's a category called feminist philosophy, right? And at first, lots of the guy philosophers were kind of making fun of it, right? What is feminist philosophy? But I actually had a feminist philosopher who was a professor of mine actually explain it. She's like, women have historically a sort of different take on things. Guys are out doing things, and we're seeing things from a different perspective, and we give birth, and we have these different kinds of issues and different sort of focuses, and so we're looking at things from a different perspective. And so, how do these things play out, and how we view the world, and things like that? And I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense, right?
Right, so, right, yeah. Absolutely. You can just give like a 30-second example, like we're talking about the moral argument. So, like with the moral argument, typically when people teach it, I'll just give you the Craig version. If God does not exist, objective moral values and duties don't exist. The premise 2, objective moral values and duties do exist, therefore God exists. Like a lot of times when people get to the second premise, of objective moral values, do exist and obligations do exist. Often they'll appeal to things like, well, obviously the Holocaust was wrong, or obviously, murdering babies for fun is wrong. Things of that nature. Well, in our context, it's usually I find itself to use examples like obviously chattel slavery on the basis of race was wrong. That's something that in the same way they're talking about the Holocaust will get mileage and help people to understand that the second premise of the moral argument. In other contexts, it helps to mention things that are culturally, like resonant. It really resonates with people in terms of their historical heritage. So there's just different ways that you can contextualize the same arguments, and then help people to see things through a different lens, so it's just, yeah.
All right. Well, we are running out of time, but fortunately, can give shout out to these last few super chat, super stickers. We have Liza J. We have Lisa Look, both with the super stickers. We have C Punish in the super chat. We have Wows in the super chat says, I looked for your doctorate work and couldn't find it. You did seem to advise many students work. If you want it, go to Fordham University. I think it should be in the maybe the library website. We had to give the document there, but if you look up, you can find wherever it is. This is where the doctoral dissertations go. But go to David Wood, and the title was Hume, Draper, and the Bayesian Argument from Evil. So shouldn't be hard to find. And MJ Jackson says the whole melting pot concept is more American than it is biblical. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that, because if you mean that, you know, the idea of the melting pot is all cultures sort of melt together into one culture, rather than, you know, each culture being preserved. So I don't know if you're meaning, you know, the melting pot in a positive or negative sense, because you know, biblically, yeah, you can have your own culture and yet still be united, be one in Christ. That's why Paul says, you know, male and female, you know, slave and free, you're all one in Christ. So yeah, it depends on what you mean. But go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I know MJ Jackson personally. You know, that's one of my guys, and so that and how you articulate that at the end, I think that's exactly what he's getting at. Matter of fact, he's got a channel too. He's got some dope work out there. So I would encourage people to hit him up on his channel as well, the Urban Christian Institute. But you know, to your point though, is like, I think many times people, there's a difference between distinctions and division. You know what I'm saying, we can be distinct.
That's a good point.
And not necessarily be divided or divisive. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, you know, that's, you know, when we have that, you know, diversity and unity kind of melded together, then it's a beautiful thing. You know, even in the body of Christ. So yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we are officially out of time. We are planning on being back. Might be Flu-Tang. Well, Flu-Tang Clan is going to keep coming back.
Flu-Tang Clan.
As long as people are quarantined, we're going to come back to chat with people. And I might figure out how to actually get some people on so that they can call in. That might be cool.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I think tomorrow night it'll be me, you, and John McCrae, right? What do you mean? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think John's going to hop on, and you know, maybe we can twist Vocab's arm.
I think Vocab said he can't be on till Sunday, so that would be a different.
He did
yeah,
say
guys.
that.
Yeah, guys. We basically got like 5 or 6 people who are all going to be. We're all going to be jumping on live whenever we can. And Monday, Braxton Hunter is going to be on. Got a couple requests.
Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah,
got a couple requests yesterday for, hey, could you get Braxton Hunter on? And so I messaged him, and he said, yeah. And so he's going to be on Monday. All right.
If you don't like Braxton Hunter, something's wrong with you, man. He's like the nicest apologist out, man. Like if you have a problem with Braxton Hunter, something is just, that's evidence that you have a depraved soul right there.
It actually reminds me of you in the sense that I haven't watched anything by Braxton Hunter. I just know multiple people are saying, hey, Braxton Hunter's cool and he's smart, so you should check him out. So yeah,
he's sharp. Yeah, he's sharp.
All right. Well, God bless everyone. Stay safe. If you're young and you think you might have coronavirus, stay away from old people, because they do have a bit more trouble beating the virus. So stay away from your grandparents, stay away from your old parents and stuff like that until doctors have basically optimized their chances of living. In the meantime, we'll see you all tomorrow.
Peace.